The trade we've been waiting for, that we've been talking about for what feels like months. Maybe it has been months, but it finally happened. Jimmy Butler traded from the Miami Heat. I'm Doug Branson from Locked On NBA and Locked On Hornets. I'm joined by Haize from Locked On Bulls. Matt Moore is doing a bet stream right now. I was in the middle of a riveting Hornets-Bucks game, but I got pulled away because of this massive deal. Multiple teams involved. Haize, I'm going to read off the litany of details involved in this move. Jimmy Butler going to Golden State. In exchange, Miami is going to get Andrew Wiggins and a first-round pick. And Zach Lowe reporting that the Heat are receiving Golden State's 2025 first-round pick that's protected for selections 1 through 10. If the pick does not convey this year, those same protections will carry over into 2026. So for Golden State, they get Jimmy Butler, Dennis Schroeder moving to Utah, Kyle Anderson going to Toronto, PJ Tucker goes to Miami, Lindy Waters, and Josh Richardson to Detroit. That's the details as we have them as of 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, a lot could change. So if you're listening to this and maybe some of the players or the locations have changed, that's what we have right now. Haize, your reaction to this massive deal?
I'm just glad that it finally got done. There's a lot of moving parts in this deal. We all knew that if they were going to complete any type of big move, Wiggins was probably going to have to be included in that. I think it just makes sense if you're adding Jimmy Butler. I like this from the aspect of the Warriors as well, that they get somebody who kind of fits their new timeline as far as over the hill productive veterans. But I still have some questions about how much better does this really make Golden State? I guess we won't know until they get on the basketball court for sure.
Well, what do you think about what Golden State had to give up? They give up Andrew Wiggins. They give up the first-round pick. There was a lot of questions as to whether Jimmy Butler, because of all of the issues, because of the fact that you have to extend him, because of the player option, which, by the way, we should say that he has agreed, Jimmy Butler, to a new 2-year, $121 million extension. Sources tell Shams Charania and Brian Windhorst of ESPN Butler is declining the player option that he had for this new $121 million 2-year deal. There are a lot of questions about what he would command back because of everything that happened in Miami and what it would mean to bring him onto the floor. But they give up Andrew Wiggins. They give up a first-round pick. Dennis Schroeder moving out. Lindy Waters moving out. So when you look at what goes out for Golden State and what they're bringing back in Jimmy Butler, just what's your sort of initial reaction as to, if this fundamentally changes what they can do in the Western Conference?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to give up. The protections on the first round pick make me feel a little bit safer about it, but it is what it is there. That's the biggest question here, right? Is how much better does this really make them in the Western Conference? Like it helps. Jimmy Butler, I think, is still up to this point a better defender than Wiggins. Also, we don't even know what version of Jimmy we have. He's been so disengaged most of the season. So now with him having that security, having a coach like Steve Kerr as well. I mean, he had Spo. But the leadership and the culture that he's going into in Golden State, I think that Dre being there is going to help kind of keep Jimmy in check some and focused. And that's a lot saying that Dre is going to help somebody stay focused. I do think it's going to help them make it out the play-in. I think they could probably get as high up maybe seventh, sixth in the West, but they're still going to have to go through that play-in tournament. The question I have here is, now that you have them locked in for 2 years after this year, what do you do in the offseason to kind of solidify and make your chances better next season, in my opinion?
Yeah, and then if the Warriors do get into the play-in, get into the postseason, then obviously they are hoping that they are getting the version of Jimmy Butler that dragged Miami to a couple of finals appearances. And right now, just in terms of his offense, Andrew Wiggins, points per shot attempt, about average for forwards this season, according to Cleaning the Glass. You look at Jimmy's points per shot attempt, just in this season, not many games played, obviously, because he's been suspended a lot for Miami. But in 25 games, it's 128.7 versus 113 for Wiggins, and that would put Jimmy in the 95th percentile. It's among forwards in the league, it's one of the best points per shot attempts. So he still has it offensively, and certainly it is an upgrade over Wiggins in that respect. So you mentioned, though, the culture that he's going into, because we did get some reporting that there was concerns within the Warriors organization about bringing Jimmy Butler and all that entails and all the chaos that he wrought on Miami, bringing that into the locker room in Golden State. But Haize obviously, I don't know who was the driving force behind this decision, but they obviously, after losing out on Kevin Durant, we got some reporting that Kevin Durant did not want to go to Golden State. And so after losing out on that, they moved to a plan B, a plan Butler, and obviously they're willing to take the risk. Do you think it's a risk worth taking for Golden State to bring him into that locker room?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth the risk. You needed to do something different. It clearly what you weren't getting the level of production for the team that you wanted with the pieces that you had. You traded for Schroeder, Buddy Hield started off the season hot. Now you're bringing in a veteran, and per the numbers you just gave, he's still very productive. So I do think it's worth the risk, specifically for this situation for the Golden State Warriors. They want to try to be as competitive as they can while Steph is still playing at this level. And this helps secure that. And I think that risk alone, you still didn't give up Kuminga, who could still be a piece for you if you need to make another move in the offseason, sign and trade or something like that. So you still have some flexibility to make further changes after you take a look at what this team is going to be able to accomplish the rest of the season. I think that makes it worth it for sure.
Well, so that was what I was going to ask next. Do you think that this now positions them to not have to move Kuminga, or could you see them continuing to make moves around this move, including moving on from Kuminga to bring in some extra pieces?
Yeah, I still think that they could look to move on from Kuminga. It could also, like you said, make them want to keep him around. It's just been funny how they've handled the whole Kuminga thing, to be honest with you. He's a promising young player. But the thing I like about this, as far as any other moves, they still got Looney's contract, right, if I'm not mistaken. You still have Gary Payton II's contract. Mm-hmm. You can still make a move for a center if you wanted to before this trade deadline's over with.
Okay, and now from Miami's perspective, so you like the haul that Miami gets, particularly that first-round pick. I think this puts them under the tax. I don't know who really cares about that, but just from a franchise health perspective, I guess, they get under the tax. They don't have to worry about that. But how does this position Miami, the ad for Wiggins here, when you pair him with Tyler Hero, when you pair him with Bam, they obviously want to compete now. They have an incentive to compete now, because if they don't, because of the Stepien rule and the draft picks that they've traded previously, it would sacrifice some of those picks earlier than I think they would want to. So they have to make the postseason now. Does this help them make the postseason?
Yeah, I think it does. I think Wiggins is going to help them. I mean, you haven't had Jimmy around. This team's still at 500, which if you're at 500 in the Eastern Conference, as long as this team can get all on the same page, which Spo, I think can. Spo's made more with less. And I think Wiggins is a player that is still productive. Yeah, he's flawed, but he's still productive. So you add that production to what the Miami Heat have had going on. Khalil Ware is really coming on for them here lately. You still got Bam having a season, Tyler Hero having his all-star season. So I think this does help them try to push up in the Eastern Conference, or at least maintain. They'll probably fall to the play-in, which I think right now they're the 7th seed. But I think this helps them with their specific situation, because they weren't getting much from Jimmy anyway.
It certainly has to help their offense a little bit, other than that Chicago game that they played on the 4th. Their points per possession over the past, really, 8-9 games has been well below average. They are really struggling to score right now. So, even though obviously Jimmy a little bit better scorer than Andrew Wiggins, at least by the efficiency numbers, Wiggins is still going to add something when as you said, like when you compare it to 0 Jimmy Butler, because because they were suspending him. That's certainly going to be an ad for them. Okay, so make sure to check out Locked On Warriors, check out Locked On Heat. I'm sure they're putting up emergency podcasts as we speak. Final thing, let's talk about the Phoenix Suns, because that was the destination. That was Jimmy's preferred destination. At least he gets to still go somewhere warm, I guess. It's not Milwaukee. He doesn't have to buy a new coat. So he goes to Golden State, but it's not Phoenix. Do you think Jimmy's going to have a problem going to Golden State? Do you think he's going to have an issue that he didn't land with his preferred destination?
No, him signing this extension, I think, points towards no. And I think, remember, Mike Dunleavy is a former teammate of Jimmy Butler. I'm sure that had to help some in this as well,
Right.
is having that relationship to kind of smooth those things out. So I think Jimmy's going to be fine being here, even though it's not his preferred destination. He realizes what he needs to do, and he's on a team full of vets that they all want to accomplish the same thing he does. As far as Phoenix, I don't think Phoenix has a pivot left, to be 100% honest with you, unless it's something that none of us expect. Phoenix is probably now going to have to sit back and finish the season out with their roster and try to figure it out in the offseason what they want to move. And this is a cautionary tale of why going into the second tax apron, you have to be 100% sure of your roster, because you have very little mobility to do anything at this point. And the Phoenix Suns have been looking reportedly for a deal for months. And they, between Bradley Beal's no trade clause, them being over the second tax apron, not able to aggregate salaries, this is where you find yourself. Heck, you got Kevin Durant on the trade market and couldn't find a deal as of yet. I think that shows how restrictive that second tax apron is.
I have to double check this number. Incredible number. The luxury tax. The Phoenix Suns are a tax team. Their projected payment. Matt Ishbia, you're on the hook for $164 million. That's insane.
That's insane.
The next highest team is the Minnesota Timberwolves at $84.8 million. $164 million for the tax payment. A lot of teams like the Hornets, maybe the Bulls too. They're probably happy about that because they will be getting some of that distribution.
Checks. Yeah. For sure.
Also insane, Haize, is how much NBA history is going to be impacted by Bradley Beal not wanting to come off his no trade clause. Insane.
Yeah.
Are you
you
surprised at all that he didn't come off of it? I felt like for so long it was a bargaining tactic. We heard for a long time that Phoenix didn't even approach him about it, and he didn't come off of it. Are you surprised that he just was saying, no, I'm not going to do it?
I am, from a point that you would think that could just get done. But when you hear his reasoning, like he doesn't want to move his family, and I think that's something that we don't really think about a lot in this, is the human element. Bradley Beal had to move from a place he was his whole career to Phoenix, and he does have a family, he does have kids. So from that aspect, once I heard that, I was like, you know what? I can understand it from that point. But just from the pure sports mind portion of it, I am surprised, because usually you find a way around those things if you push hard enough. They benched him, all that, and he just did not budge on it. So shout out to Bradley Beal, I guess.
I'll say if that truly was the reason, the family aspect of it, that honestly does surprise me, because I think time and time again we see stories of professional athletes asking their family to make sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice, because to be this great at this level at anything, much less professional sports, requires a lot of sacrifice from the people that you love. And the fact that he would make this move and not say, look, the Phoenix Suns don't want me. They don't want me here. I want to go play somewhere where I'm wanted. How many times have we heard that from big time players saying, like, if they don't want me, then I don't want to play here. But Bradley basically doing the opposite. I think it is pretty surprising to see this happen.
For sure. And like I said, I commend him. If the family aspect is truly the reason why, he has nothing but love for me in that aspect of it.
All right, final prediction that I'll ask you now. I'll probably ask you again when we go on the air tomorrow. Who makes it further in the postseason? The Golden State Warriors or the Miami Heat? And I'm writing this down. I'm holding you to this.
It's crazy because you're betting against the conference in the Eastern Conference. There's always a surprise team in the Eastern. Heck, the Miami Heat have been that team versus the Golden State Warriors. That you know what? I'm going to say the Golden State Warriors. Between the coaching, Steph and Dre hopefully now being motivated. You got Jimmy Butler, who has gone crazy in the playoffs before. I'll say that the Golden State Warriors go further.
Yeah, it's tough to bet against Steph, although I do wonder what this Miami Heat team is going to look like. Not so much with Andrew Wiggins, but without Jimmy Butler, with the pall, with the cloud lifted now over this franchise, even though he wasn't on the floor with him, even though after a certain point he wasn't anywhere near the team, you could just sense that everyone had this weight on their shoulders, from the players to Eric Spoelstra. They were tired of talking about it. Well, guess what? Now they don't have to talk about it anymore. Now they can focus on basketball, and you just wonder if we're about to see, an 8 out of 10 run from maybe both of these teams. Maybe it energizes both of these teams. We will see. Again, make sure to check out Locked On Warriors. Check out Locked On Heat. Also, Locked On NBA Game Time on this same feed is going to be focusing on the ramifications of this trade. They may have more details by then on some of the little maneuvers that are happening to make all of the numbers work. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much to Haize, and Matt Moore and Haize will rejoin me tomorrow, and we will continue to unpack this deal. And who knows, maybe we're going to unpack a few more deals. Maybe KD does get moved from Phoenix. I mean, Luka's a Laker. Anything is possible. All right, we'll see you tomorrow on Locked On NBA.